Hey, welcome on in, guys. Tobin here with you, and thanks for checking out the channel. Hope you're doing well there. If you guys could subscribe, that'd be great, and appreciate you stopping on by. So the Miami Dolphins getting ready for the Carolina Panthers. Everybody is looking at this the same way. I'm sure Carolina, in some ways, is looking at it in their same way. If the Miami Dolphins have an opportunity here, an opportunity to try and fluff up their record, to get it right. I've said over the next 4 games, the Dolphins got to go 3-1, keep themselves at 500 before they get to that Ravens game, even though these ain't your bigger cousins Ravens. They seem very banged up right now, maybe vulnerable, maybe a chance there, but let's task it in. Let's take care of these Carolina Panthers. And obviously, the Miami Dolphins have to go into a world where there's no Tyreek Hill anymore. Tyreek Hill getting his surgery, and we'll handle those updates as they come. But this really, there's a couple of interesting characters that come along for the ride here. One of them is a new character, and that is Darren Waller. And let me tell you something, dude. Tua Tagovailoa today, it was almost like he had discovered throwing it up there for someone. It was pretty crazy because, these giant possession receivers, he had Devontae Parker a little bit. He had Mike Gesicki. They didn't really quite vibe in a playing style quite like, Gesicki did with Fitzpatrick. He, remember the Dolphins franchise, Mike Gesicki, that just was a wash, didn't use him. He had a bigger target in Jonnu Smith, but I always think of Jonnu as like, hey, his stuff was kind of yak monster doing things like really throwing it up to Jonnu wasn't like a huge. I'm sure you guys could find a couple of plays, but that's not really what I think of that as when it comes to the Miami Dolphins. And certainly, they have a new space alien that we're all intrigued by. I understand the phoniness of this because I said in many videos along the way, I'm like, I expect nothing from this. I might even have a video just titled up here, like the Darren Waller experiment, pull the plug. Because it almost felt like Mike McDaniel was like leaning towards that. And maybe he was just playing poker. Now, we got some clarity on his injury. He had declared it a tear, making it sound like a major. Now, he had a strain, which technically a strain is a bit of a tear. We're not going to play Semantic Samurais with Darren Waller. We're happy for him. He's now got everybody very intrigued. You now have our attention, Darren Waller. We're all very excited to see what this can happen. And Tua was too. Tua was basically just like sitting here and he goes, man, that dude, he was like, you just threw it up there. You trusted him. And he went and made a big boy play, which was really, really cool. I don't know how I felt about Mike McDaniel saying that he came off the rocker. Funny. But it was one of those things where, Darren Waller, the Dolphins feel like they needed something like this. They needed a surprise along the way because for the most part, it is felt not just on the record, but the Dolphins have just been taking L after L. They really haven't gotten too many nice surprises. We've mentioned the cornerbacks seem like they've settled in nicely. So that's good. But the defensive line underwhelmed. The pass rush underwhelmed. Tua, for the most part, is underwhelmed. The O-line been banged up. They said today, by the way, Austin Jackson is still scooting around. He's in a walking boot, still scooting. That's not great. I don't like that is now going to Gravyville of like, hey, when is he going to be back? I don't know. Well, when it happens, it happens. Now it's kind of one of those things where like I hope that he comes back, but I'm not going to hold my breath. That just is what it is right now when it comes to this team and this franchise. But Darren Waller, it just felt like, oh, man, boom. And then, of course, not only that, but talking about L's, like the Dolphins get their first win, and then they take a huge L because they lose Tyreek Hill. So, I'm not going whiskey today. Cold brew. Not the fun kind of cold brew, though, like the responsible kind. But yeah, man, that Darren Waller thing, it is funny because Tua was taking a lot of questions today about the receiver and the difference of guys with catch radius and all this. And this is a bit of a new world with Tua, and not to have him swim up with his mermaid tail, but like yeah, his eyes feel like they're opened up a little bit to the possibilities of like, hey, just kind of making things happen, making plays happen, which he's been doing. He's been doing over the last couple games a better job of backbreaking turnovers at the end aside. So I am curious to see what more Darren Waller has in the bag. He let out that he's going to get more snaps this time around. So it's going to be up from the 16 that he had. And I think that the entire Dolphins crew is probably thinking to themselves, hey, not only do we have an opportunity here, you kind of have this situation with the Dolphins, right? Where, all right, you lose Tyreek Hill. They've been very Tyreek Hill reliant. Now you have options around the board. Nobody is as good as the guy you lost. That is a fact. And the only guy who's been playing up to that level is Achane. So now you're in this spot where it's like, hey, we're gonna have the tight end. That's a weapon now. Maybe Julian Hill even had like a nice little play on in his own right. You know, he hasn't been old stone hands this year, which I've been proud of. I don't know what's gonna do with the gambling numbers. I gotta look at that because no Tyreek Hill. That's obviously gonna mess with my play. I kind of thought I was gonna get paid this past week. I was like, oh, this could be it. But as nice as the Darren Waller story has been, rightfully so, a lot of the attention goes to Jaylen Waddle. And Jaylen Waddle is probably, I think by approval rating, is probably one of the most popular Dolphins, right? Like, even people who love Tyreek Hill, there are some people that are like, like there's things about Tyreek Hill you don't love. You know, people who aren't separating the football from the guy, acknowledging his football excellence, but they're just things that you're just like, you kind of cringe at, whatever. Jaylen Waddle, none of that. It's just like, hey, good player, seems like an A+ dude. Love when he waddles. Love when he goes fins for the win. Adorbs. And when he, gets a big play, even when it's not a touchdown, I love the flex. I love when he does the robot thing with I love Jaylen Waddle, right? But I said this year, and it's now it's never rung more true. I felt like there was more pressure on Jaylen Waddle this year, in my eyes, than there was in Tyreek Hill as far as proving himself. I know that Tyreek Hill is an all-time player. I know that he's going to the Hall of Fame. There's no doubt about that. Jaylen Waddle, though, this was kind of the plan all along. Let's say the Dolphins did get to the point where they were going to get rid of Tyreek Hill and move on from Tyreek Hill. Like, the whole point of them signing at the same time was Tyreek Hill's going to finish out his contract. Jaylen Waddle, boom, you're wide receiver 1. Last year, man, Dolphin fans were incensed with rage when Pat McAfee, myself included, when he was like, the Dolphins should have traded for Jonathan Taylor. And he goes, why can't we get Jaylen Waddle? He goes, Jaylen Waddle's not a number 1. People were going crazy over that. Well, now he's right in the thicket of it. Like, the Dolphins need Jaylen Waddle to be wide receiver 1. We know that he's got great chemistry with the quarterback, so there's no excuse there. You always got to account for durability because, he can get thrown to the ground and have a shoulder injury, and those are things that you have to account for. But this is his moment. Like, this is his moment to show the league, hey, you're not a sidekick. You're just as good, or you're in the class of those guys. You're overlooked. You are not some sidekick. You are not Aquaman of the Justice League. You are an actual superhero that people like. And that is one of the, although I do think that the Penguin and Aquaman would probably get along, but he sucks as a superhero, dude. I mean, we all know this, right? Nonetheless, the pressure really does go on his shoulders with all of this because, Malik Washington, we've seen, like, hey, they love using the gimmick plays with him and using the Deebo Samuel plays with him, and they love all of that. Devon Achane, he may actually be the one who gets to carry this offense, in a lot of ways. I mean, like, that's how good he's been. So in that regard, like, you only need Jaylen Waddle to be like the third most important offensive player. Take it, I guess, skilled player. We'll take offensive line away from it. But Tua, obviously, Devon Achane, obviously, and then Jaylen Waddle, man. Like, he's got to be the guy who can show that he takes all of this. And Tua's gonna bust out his very tall new toy in the red zone and take it for a spin. Darren Waller looks like he's playing really well. And we saw that Tua did love having the relief valve that is the tight end. But, like, dude, this is set up right here to be Jaylen Waddle's moment, right? Like, and then he's got some teams that it feels like he could feast on the next couple of weeks to get that confidence up as long as he stays healthy. I am pretty fascinated to see him in the limelight of, like, hey, you're the guy. What are you gonna do? I think he's been looking pretty damn good these last few games. Like, been there for clutch catches, been getting open. Um, you know, so I'm there is a sneaky excitement about that for me with him because you start off your career with all those 1,000-yard seasons, just like everybody. You had the down year last year. And then this year, there's so much drama on Tyreek Hill, and there's so much of a scope on Tyreek and Tua's relationship that, like, everybody's, like, forgetting, hey, this guy's got to step up too. Like, he's going into the prime of his career. We need to see what that is. And I think everybody's rooting for it because, again, he's probably one of the most likable guys on the team. And that's with, like, having bad turnovers in his own right in his career or bad drops in his own right in his career, that people adore Jaylen Waddle and want to see him flourish in this situation. So now Tua's got his old faithful. He's got his rising running back star behind him, and he's got this new freakazoid tight end that had a hell of a debut that he doesn't even necessarily have, like, the chemistry down with, but he's kind of saying chemistry be damned. Like, I'm throwing it up to that Frankenstein, and we'll see if he can go get the football. So it is good that the Dolphins. I'm not looking ahead or looking past the Carolina Panthers because Lord knows the Dolphins can self-combust themselves. You can't put anything past them in a road game in the NFL that they're some kind of juggernaut. But I'm very curious to see, like, how they go about this whole thing, and if this is going to be a moment here with no Tyreek Hill for all of these guys to kind of rally and make themselves, who's going to step up in that regard? Who is going to take over? Who is going to be the guy? Can they make up for not having Tyreek Hill? Can they kick? This team has done a terrible job of shaking loose narratives, and proving people wrong. We saw a little bit of it last week with Darren Waller. It would be nice to show that, all right, Tyreek Hill's gone, but you still have your own wide receiver 1A is now stepping right in there to wide receiver 1. They say he's elite. We got to go see him prove it. But one person who's done proving it and it's just donezo is Cam Smith. They finished that off today, which, whoo, man, Mike McDaniel. I mean, look, whatever the hell happened here, I'm sure more details will come out eventually, and we'll figure out what the hell all the details were for this. But man, when I was, like, listening to him and he was asked how he would characterize Cam Smith's time in Miami, and he had, like, the greatest comeback slash quip slash description. He just goes, time. Now he goes into his own Mike McDaniel ramble with that too, but, like, it's just, yeah, he's right. It just felt like floating time. Like, that's what it was for Cam Smith. Floating time. And just probably, I don't know all the details of what went on there, but he was even asked, like, would he sign Cam Smith to the practice squad? And he's just like, no. And they're like, wishing that. So, like, I don't know, but it feels like there was something else that was just like, dude, we're done with this guy. Because it's like they made them, they didn't need to make the roster. They just waved him off this non-football reserve thingy. And the Cedric Wilson move, that was for Tyreek Hill. So they were just like, whatever happened there, and like, look, this was foreshadowed by old man Vic Fangio, who's looking for steroid footballs right now. But McDaniel was just like, yeah, wish him the best. No, don't want him. How would you describe it, Mike? Time. And, basically was one of these things where big time failed pick, in a draft where, they were put in a tough spot because of the whole tampering thing. But my goodness, dude. Like that was unbelievable to see Mike McDaniel just like fed up with the whole Cam Smith saga story and was ready to close that chapter so fast and go in another direction. He was donezo with him. And I can't blame him. Look, it's not like the guy didn't get his chances, but that's unfortunate. I'm sure he'll get a chance somewhere. Usually, if you've got a draft pick of that pedigree, somebody else who's got a relationship or knows, gotta imagine they're gonna kick the tires on him, right? This habit. Cole Strange is, I don't know, like, why Cole Strange had his failures in New England, but he's a former first round pick. The Dolphins slammed on. Now he's starting. Working out okay. It happens. Maybe he will find a place that'll just let him be him, I guess. But man, I was when I saw Mike McDaniel's, I was like, oh my god, he was more than done with that kid.